was sitting on a park bench, numb, broken, and invisible, just another grieving face in a busy world. Then he sat beside me, a billionaire, not flashy, not loud, just calm, kind, and with one word, he cracked open the pain I buried deep. That word, love. Hey, I know life gets heavy. If you've ever felt unseen, unloved, or like the world moved on without you, this story is for you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Someone out there might need to hear this just as much as you. They say time heals all wounds, but when my mother died, time just stopped. My name doesn't really matter right now. What matters is the ache I carry, the one that quietly moved in the day I lost her. It wasn't sudden. She had been sick for a while, but even when you're bracing for impact, grief still hits like a freight train. You think you're ready, and then you're not. You never are. After the funeral, the house felt too big, too quiet. Her scent still lingered on her pillow, and I found myself standing in doorways just listening, as if her voice might echo back. Friends tried to help at first, texting, dropping off food, sending prayers. But grief makes you tired. Tired of explaining, tired of pretending you're okay, tired of holding back the tears in public. Eventually, the calls stopped. The silence grew. So I started going to the park. There was this one bench tucked near the fountain, nothing special, but something about it felt still, like a safe place to unravel. I would just sit there for hours, not really thinking, not really feeling, just existing. Sometimes I watched people walk by. Sometimes I didn't look up at all. I wasn't waiting for anything. I wasn't hoping for anyone. I was just trying to breathe. I didn't dress up. I didn't smile. I didn't cry either. That was the strange part. I felt like I had run out of emotions, like I had been emptied out and left with a hollow space inside. I would stare at the trees, at the sky, at strangers' faces, searching for something, anything. But mostly I just sat still, invisible to the world, and somehow that felt like where I belonged, until he showed up. It was a Tuesday, I think, or maybe a Thursday. Days had started blending into each other by then. I was on the bench, same as always. Hoodie pulled over my head, eyes fixed on nothing. That's when he sat down. At first, I barely noticed him, just caught the motion from the corner of my eye. A tall man, maybe late 30s or early 40s, dark coat, clean shoes, calm energy. He didn't say anything, didn't even look at me. He just sat on the other end of the bench. I thought maybe he was just passing time like me, maybe grieving his own something or someone. I didn't care either way, but his presence felt different, not intrusive, just there. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Most people would have checked their phone or started scrolling through something by now, but he didn't. He just sat still, eyes on the water, hands folded in his lap. Like silence was enough for him. It made me curious. Who just sits like that in this world? I stole a few glances. He looked peaceful, like someone who had made peace with something I hadn't yet. His face didn't show sorrow, but it didn't show joy either. It was balanced, gentle, and for the first time in days, maybe weeks, I wasn't alone on that bench. He didn't try to start a conversation, didn't offer pity. He just stayed. And somehow that simple act, just sitting beside me in silence, meant more than all the well-meaning words anyone else had spoken. I didn't know his name, didn't know why he was there, but his presence felt like an anchor in a sea of grief. And without saying a single word, he made me feel a little less invisible. It wasn't until the third day that he spoke. I had come to the park like always, wearing the same jacket, hair tied up, eyes dull. And there he was, already sitting on the bench. Same calm posture, same quiet gaze. For a moment, I wondered if he had been waiting for me. But that was ridiculous, right? I sat down without saying a word. We just existed in that silence again. 10 minutes passed, maybe more. Then softly he asked, "Are you okay?" I wasn't prepared for it, not because of the question, but because of the way he asked it. There was no pressure in his voice, no expectation, just curiosity. Like he truly wanted to know, not because it was polite, but because he cared. I paused. I could have said, "I'm fine." That's what I always said. But instead I whispered, "I'm just trying to breathe." He nodded slowly. No follow-up question, no advice, just acceptance. And somehow that unlocked something inside me. I told him I had lost my mum. I didn't give details, just the basics. He didn't say, "I'm sorry for your loss." He just listened, fully, with his eyes, with his stillness. It didn't feel like talking to a stranger. It felt like talking to someone who understood grief, not just the pain of it, but the quiet aftermath. I started showing up daily, and he was always there. Sometimes we talked, sometimes we didn't. But that space, that shared silence, became sacred. He never asked for more than I could give. And slowly, I started giving more. More words, more trust, more of myself. And in that gentle space between strangers, a new kind of healing began, one that didn't need noise, just presence. Over the next few weeks, I learned his name, Eli. Simple, soft-spoken, and always so calm, like nothing could shake him. One afternoon, as the leaves started to turn gold, I asked, "What do you do?" He smiled, kind of shyly, and said, "I build things." I laughed. "Like what? Furniture?" He looked over at me and said, "Companies." It took me a moment to register what that meant. Companies? As in tech? Startups? He nodded, still modest. Told me he had sold his first company at 26. He had investments all over the world now, but he never talked about it like it mattered. He said money was just a tool, useful but not meaningful. That stunned me. I had met men with money before, on social media, in passing, but they always led with it. Eli didn't wear expensive watches or flashy brands. He wore peace, humility. He told me he grew up poor, single mum, 3 siblings. That made me smile. We weren't so different after all. He didn't just talk about business. He talked about his sister, said she passed away 5 years ago, cancer. He said he never really recovered, just learned to carry it. That's when I realized he knew grief. Not from the outside, not in theory, but from the inside, like me. That was our connection, not pain, but survival. We were 2 people who knew how it felt to keep breathing when everything in you wanted to stop. And slowly I stopped seeing him as the billionaire. He wasn't just rich, he was real, kind, grounded, patient. And in a world that had felt so cold and distant, his presence felt like sunlight through the cracks. I didn't know where this was going, but I knew I didn't want it to end. One day, I broke. I don't even know what triggered it. Maybe it was the way the wind carried the scent of flowers that reminded me of my mum's perfume. Maybe it was the song playing from a nearby car. But whatever it was, something cracked open. I started crying. Not soft, quiet tears, the kind I could usually hide, but the kind that came from deep in my chest. Ugly, shaking sobs. I buried my face in my hands, ashamed. People were walking by. I wanted to disappear. Eli didn't move. He didn't try to hug me or say, "It's going to be okay." Instead, he just said one word. Love. That was it. I looked at him through blurry eyes, confused, broken. He said, "Love doesn't leave when someone dies. It stays. In the way you speak, in the way you remember, in the way you live. Your mother's love didn't leave you. It became a part of you." And just like that, something shifted. That one word, love, hit me deeper than any sympathy ever had. Because until then, I'd only thought about the loss, the absence, the silence. I forgot that love doesn't get buried with the body. It echoes, it lingers, it lives on in me. I didn't respond right away. I just breathed. For the first time in weeks, I really deeply breathed. Not just air, but peace. That moment, that word, became the start of my healing. Not because he fixed me, he didn't try to. He just reminded me of something I'd forgotten, something simple and sacred. Love is not gone, love is what remains. And that somehow made it possible to keep going, not as a grieving woman anymore, but as someone who was learning how to live again. After that day, something began to change in me. It wasn't sudden, healing never is, but it was real, little things. I started brushing my hair again, picking outfits that didn't all blend into the background. I even bought a new notebook and began writing. Just thoughts, memories of Mum, small dreams I had tucked away. Eli noticed. He never made a big deal out of it, but I saw the way his eyes lit up the first time I laughed at one of his dry jokes. Like I had finally come back to life, even if just a little. He kept showing up. Some days we talked about grief, some days we talked about life, favourite foods, books, music, his strange obsession with old jazz vinyls. We had this easy rhythm now, like we had always known each other. One afternoon, I told him I used to want to be a therapist, to help people like me, people who feel invisible in their pain. He didn't laugh. He didn't say it was unrealistic. He just looked at me and said, "You still can." I blinked. No one had said that to me in so long, not "that's nice" or "maybe someday," but "you still can." He encouraged me to apply to graduate school, helped me prep for the interviews, believed in me when I wasn't sure how to believe in myself. For the first time in months, I could see a future again. It wasn't just about surviving anymore, it was about becoming someone, not just the girl who lost her mum, but the woman who chose to keep going, to live, to love. And somewhere along the way, the bench became more than a place of grief. It became a place of growth, of beginnings. It happened on a quiet evening, just before sunset. We were sitting on the bench, like always. The light was soft, casting golden shadows across the water. I was talking about something silly, probably my fear of grad school interviews, and he was smiling in that patient way he always did. Then, out of nowhere, he said, "Can I tell you something?" I nodded. He looked nervous for the first time since I met him. He paused, took a breath, then said, "I think I'm falling in love with you." My heart stopped. I looked at him, unsure if I heard right. Love? Me? I felt frozen. Not because I didn't care about him, I did. But love? After everything I'd been through? After all the emptiness and grief? He must have seen the fear on my face because he quickly added, "You don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know. What I feel for you, it's not pity. It's not about rescuing. It's real." I didn't respond right away. My chest felt tight. 1,000 thoughts raced through me. Was I ready? Did I even know how to love again? But then I remembered that word, the one that cracked me open weeks ago, love. Love wasn't always loud. Sometimes it was quiet, steady, patient. It looked like showing up every day, sitting in silence, listening without fixing. And that's what Eli had given me. Not romance, not fireworks, but real love. So I whispered, "I think I'm falling too." He didn't rush toward me. He just reached for my hand. And in that moment, I knew I wasn't just healing anymore. I was opening to something new, to something soft, to love, not as a memory, but as a future. After that night, everything felt different. Not in a dramatic movie scene kind of way, but in the small, gentle ways that life starts to feel lighter. I still missed my mum. That never went away. But her absence no longer swallowed me whole. It lived inside me, beside the new things I was letting in. Laughter, hope, Eli. We started building a rhythm outside the park, coffee shop mornings, library study sessions. He came with me to my graduate school orientation. I met his friends, his team, even his dog, an old Labrador named Duke, who acted like we'd always been family. And slowly I realized love didn't replace grief. It just gave it somewhere to rest. One evening, we went back to that same bench, the place where everything began. I had just submitted my final university application. I was nervous, proud, and honestly, still a little scared. Eli held my hand and said, "No matter where this takes you, I'll be here, not to lead your story, just to walk beside you in it." That's when I knew he wasn't my savior. He was my witness to my pain, to my healing, to my becoming. It's funny. I used to think grief was the end of my story, that life had closed its door the day my mom died. But looking back now, I realize it was a beginning. A painful one, yes, but one that led me here, to myself, to him, to love. Not as a fairy tale, but as a choice. And when people ask me how I survived, I tell them this: I didn't. I transformed. Because one day a stranger sat beside me in silence and reminded me with just one word that love never really leaves. It just changes form. If this story touched something inside you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Comment below if you've ever found light in the darkest places. And remember, love might not fix everything, but it can start the healing. Subscribe for more stories that speak to the heart.